Welcome, everyone, to Real Talk Fantasy Baseball. John, you weren't on the show last week, and I did get a chance to tell you yet. Congratulations, man. Eagles, Super Bowl. That was pretty epic, man. They're already calling this team a dynasty. Let's hear your thoughts as a fan.
Man, I could spend the next hour talking birds. I'm not going to do that, but Philly loves a winner. Philly loves an underdog. Every single analyst picked the Chiefs to win that Super Bowl. That's all we needed. So I'm going to love if you guys all want to bet against the Phillies too. We love when people bet against us. So just saying, so much fun. We are a dynasty. Eagles will be back. Now it's the Phillies' turn. Let's talk some baseball.
Yeah. I don't know about if it's the Phillies' turn, man. It looks like we got a dynasty over in L.A. Vincent Ovich says, can't wait for ball. Yeah, us either, man. Baseball started today. I don't know if you watched any spring training games today, John. I know you're a busy guy, but big story of today was Bobby Miller, starting pitcher for the Dodgers, got hit with a comebacker in the head. He's on concussion protocol. At least it was on the first day of spring training. You know, it kind of sucks that he'll be kind of like slowed down for the moment, but at least it wasn't like on the last day, you know, or on the first day of the regular season. Like that would really suck. At least he has a little time, you know, 7-day concussion protocol, take some time off and rest a little bit and see if he can come back strong and possibly make the 25-man roster going into the beginning of the season. I don't really think he has a chance for the rotation because the Dodgers are just so deep this season in starting pitching, but there's a chance he could be in the bullpen, you know, at least get his feet wet a little bit more in the majors.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a Dodgers fan, which I'm not, I'm absolutely not, but I would not be concerned about Bobby Miller. I mean, what are we talking about here? You guys have more arms in that bullpen than anything I've ever seen. So, I mean, your starting rotation is longer than a CVS receipt. I mean, you guys have more options. Bobby Miller doesn't really matter. I'm sorry, but sorry, Bobby Miller. You're just not that important. You'd be in anybody else's starting rotation.
For sure. But, all right, man. Well, let's go ahead and get this shit started. Today, we are talking about players that you should avoid in drafts, and we are going to start with catchers. So, John, which catcher are you actively avoiding in your draft year?
Well, I guess we're going to say that Bobby Miller caught a line drive, so I'm going to say we're going to avoid him. So sorry for that. But if we're going to start with catchers, specifically Cal Raleigh, I like Cal Raleigh. I do. His ADP at 84, I think, is what's tough for me. So last year, Cal Raleigh hit 220. He's not going to hit for average, but he hit 232 the year before that, a little downfall. I'm not going to talk average, though. The guy hit for 34 home runs. He had 100 RBI last year from the catcher position. I guess drafting any Mariner in the top 100 just makes me a little worrisome. Getting that kind of production from a catcher is amazing, but relying on it from a catcher is a different conversation. So he played 153 games last year. He's probably going to get the same chance if he can stay healthy, but that's a big if. And I think between the catching position, can he stay healthy? His average is going down, but if he doesn't hit for power, he doesn't really have anything else. And if he gets injured even a little bit and loses his power, we're talking about a 220 catcher that you drafted at 83 overall. That's not worth it for me.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head right there. Just the team context, you know, he doesn't really have the best supporting cast around him, and the ballpark itself, it just sucks for power hitters. 34 home runs is pretty good for a catcher. You don't really see that too often, but
quiet,
I feel
34
like
too, very quiet.
Yeah, I mean, because the Mariners don't really get talked about a lot. Their starting pitching does because they have awesome starting pitching, but you know, when it comes to scoring runs, they're really not up there when you're talking about, you know, the elite teams. All right, so moving on to my catcher, I am actually going with your boy, JT Realmuto. JT Realmuto, he's been drafted as the top catcher in fantasy almost every single season up until now. So from 2019 to 2024, he was the first catcher drafted off the board. A couple seasons before that, he was the first catcher drafted off the board also. But then you had, Buster Posey kind of in the mix as well. Buster Posey kind of had that like resurgence season that he, later on in his career. But there's no denying that JT Realmuto was the top catcher in fantasy for a really long time. But his ADP this season, it's pretty bad. He's actually the 10th catcher coming off the board this season. And I think the ADP is clearly reflecting his declining skills. He's going right after Logan O'Hoppe and right before Tyler Stevenson. And at this point in the draft, I'm not really looking for players that were good that could possibly come back. I'm looking for upside right now. And at 34 years old, Realmuto doesn't really have much upside. The knees are going. They're talking about potentially moving him into the outfield this season, which actually might help him a little bit, or it might actually hinder him a little bit, because you figure outfielders, they're going to be running around a lot out there. That's not good for their legs, especially on a 34-year-old catcher that has been, basically crouching down his whole career, and towards the end of his career, usually these guys transition to first base, not the outfield. Now, Kyle Schwarber did it, but Kyle Schwarber was also in his 20s when that happened, but I just don't see that really working out for them. His exit velocities have dropped. The barrel percentage has been dipping. The fly ball percentage was his lowest in 2024 since 2016. You can't hit home runs if you're not hitting the ball in the air, Rob Thompson, I don't know what he's thinking with this possible move to the outfield. I don't know. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Don't worry about it. It's not Zero chance. Zero chance. Zero.
Yeah, hopefully.
Literally
I don't even know why that was even brought up at all. But all right, so let's go to the comments. We actually have a few people in the live right now. All right, so wow, a lot. Ernie laughed at your comment, the CVS receipt. That was actually pretty funny.
Let's get these comments popping up. I haven't been paying attention, so if we can pop them up here and we'll start chatting with you boys.
Let's see. It looks like there is a trade in the comments. Naylor for Ciccone. Is this Bo Naylor? Josh so. Naylor? Yeah, I mean, Bo Naylor. Bo Naylor would make more sense. Yeah, Josh Naylor. I mean, there's not a lot of fantasy options that I would trade for Josh Naylor. I think Josh Naylor has a lot of potential, and he's still really young. He looks a lot older than he is. He looks like he's already like in his mid 30s. The dude's only like 28 years old. So
George Kirby or Snell, we're gonna get to that. I'm gonna talk on that here a little bit later in the episode, but that's a very good comparison that we're gonna hit on specifically. So good one there.
Let's see. Yep, moving on from Realmuto from my dynasty league this year. I kind of assumed that, Ernie. I saw him in your team last year. I know he was one of your keepers, so I would have assumed that you were going to pass on him also. Sean Duffy saying Kirby or Snell. I think that's where you and I are going to differ, John. Let's go ahead and break it open now. So I am the low guy on Blake Snell, and it's really because I think that, Petco Park and Oracle Park and, the two ballparks that he was playing in before were just so misleading to what he can actually do, because he walks a bunch of batters. He had over 100 walks one season, and for a Cy Young winner, he that's actually the year that he won the Cy Young. Like that's not, in the cards for me when I'm looking for someone that I want to draft, especially going so early. So I actually like George Kirby a lot better. George Kirby is actually like a control specialist. He doesn't really give up a lot of walks. The whip is going to stay really low. He's going to help you in whip, ERA. He doesn't have the strikeout potential that Blake Snell does, because if Blake Snell could throw 190 innings, he's probably going to end the season with over 230, 240 strikeouts or so. George Kirby is a decent strikeout pitcher. But I think Kirby is more safe bet. So I'm going Kirby. John?
You like safe bets? I like the guy who's got the hardware. Two of them in his trophy case. He's got 2 Cy Youngs. What are we talking about? He's got 2 Cy Youngs. He just joined the best team in baseball that just is coming off a World Series, and he's probably realistically going to be a 2 or 3 in that rotation. He doesn't have to even be an ace. He has no pressure. He's going to get run support. I can't wait to see Blake Snell this year. I love George Kirby. Love George Kirby. But Blake Snell now relaxed in LA on a team getting paid a shit ton of money, and he doesn't have. He's just going to get wins for pitching 5 innings. He doesn't have to pitch 6, 7. Who cares? Blake Snell is going to dominate.
True. Especially because the Dodgers have that loaded bullpen, like you were mentioning earlier. All right. So Vincent also said he sent Andres Jimenez for Luis Ortiz. I think that's a pretty fair trade. I really like Andres Jimenez this year. Especially because second base is just so weak this season. And Ortiz looks worthwhile, though, in my opinion. I'm assuming you're talking about the second baseman, Luis Ortiz,
Sure.
not the starting pitcher. But I think I like Andres Jimenez better than the second base, Luis Ortiz. John, any thoughts on that?
I like Andres Jimenez a bit. I mean, I think he kind of came on strong, but I don't know. Not. I'd say that was kind of caught me off guard because I'm certainly ready to talk more on Salvador Perez. If you want to go back to my first baseman pick.
All right, one more. Ernie says, I worry about the Dodgers 6-man rotation. The Dodgers have more than a 6-man rotation. It looks like they have like an 8-man rotation. So I really don't know how that's going to play out for the rest of the season. I mean, the Dodgers are notorious for 10-day IL stints and, potentially being on the IL even longer than that. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to just watch and see. And thank God it's, about a month away from now. So, all right, moving on to
one more very quick thing on Ernie's comment there. The Dodgers don't spend money without calculating exactly where that money's going. So they're not just going to throw 40-something million at Blake Snell to not pitch him.
Yeah, for sure.
Trade, I think.
All right, moving on to first basemen to avoid. Let's go ahead and get to your pick, which you already mentioned, Salvador Perez.
Well, Salvador Perez, let's talk about that future Hall of Famer. Great guy, but Father Time is undefeated. So he's hit 271 with 27 homers, 104 RBI, and I would bet the farm that he's not going to top any of those in 2025. He's averaged 267 with 28 homers and 96 RBI for his entire career. So to hit 271 with 27 and 104 last year in his age 34 season is kind of tough to imagine that he's going to beat. Personally, I guess I've been sitting here waiting for that sharp decline. I mean, Salvador Perez also does feel like he's like 55 years old. But for some reason, that big regression just hasn't come. But even the slightest regression, doesn't also warrant me drafting him in the top 100. So at ADP 89, I think you're going to get better value for guys like a Cody Bellinger at 92, Vinny Pasquantino at 108. I like Tristan Casas at 118. And I even like a guy like Alec Boehm at 143 over Salvador Perez.
I don't know about the Alec Boehm one, mainly because Salvador Perez still has catcher eligibility. I know he's on your, first baseman to avoid, but that catcher eligibility, it definitely means something. But other than that, I tend to agree with you slightly. All right. So before I get to my first baseman, I do want to mention that we have a fantasy baseball fan league brought to you by Real Talk Baseball. I am going to put this up right here. All right, so it is free to sign up, no entry fee. There's 12 teams, prizes for the winner. So if you do want to sign up for our free fantasy fan league, go ahead and put in the comments that you want to join, and I will send you a message with the link. And just to show people what the prize could potentially be, this is what we gave away last season. It is a Real Talk Baseball custom jersey with the year 24 and champ on the back. So
it's legit, very legit.
It is legit. I know I kind of wanted to ask you guys, like, so if I win my own fan league for Real Talk Baseball, does that mean that I get to get my jersey too? Because I'm in this league, I'm not trying to let anyone win. They got to work for it. So I don't know. I guess that's something that we could talk about later on, or maybe I'll just buy my own Real Talk Baseball jersey.
Well, you got to remember, if you're in the same league as me, you don't stand a chance to win that jersey.
Ooh. So... Nice.
Shots fired.
Yeah, shots fired. All right. Big thanks for watching us live. Hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We are trying to reach our goal of 1,000 YouTube subscribers before the season starts, and we are trying to get to 2,000 by the end of the season. So any subscribes would definitely help with that. All right, John. So you said Salvador Perez for your first baseman you're avoiding. I am going with the 11th first baseman off the board, Spencer Steer. Now, with Spencer Steer, I think the biggest question is, where is he going to play? Because he has so many different position eligibilities: first, second, third, outfield. The problem is the Reds have a crowded outfield and an even more crowded infield, especially with the addition of Gavin Lux. I don't think we really know where Gavin Lux is going to play. He could play short, second, outfield. And honestly, Spencer Steer is really nothing special. He's probably going to hit 230. And even though he plays in the most hitter-friendly ballpark, I think he'll probably have around 20 home runs or less. I'll definitely take the under. When he is in the lineup, he'll be in the bottom half, so the runs and RBI will be kind of hard to come by. I think there's just too much competition, and he's just not very good. And there's other guys that are going after him, like Vinny Pasquantino at 107 overall, or Tristan Casas at 118 overall, that I would much rather have. They have a lot more upside, and I'd rather take the gamble on them versus Spencer Steer, that it looks like a lot of playing time is in jeopardy. All right, John, we're going to move on to second base. Who is your second baseman that you are actively avoiding?
For second base, I love this guy too. So I think all of these, I will always say, I might love this guy, but I guess I don't love the draft position. Ketel Marte at 24 just seems tough to me. Ketel Marte's a stud, and if you really digest and look at those numbers on the back of the baseball card, he's on a Hall of Fame track. With that said, Marte at 24 seems aggressive just because he's just not really overly consistent. Last year, he had a great season, hit 292, 36 home runs, 95 RBIs for the D-backs. But in 10 seasons in baseball, he's only surpassed 25 home runs twice. He's got a career 280 average, 21 home runs, 76 RBI, which is a lot different from the 292, 36, 95 he did last year. So I don't know, man. If we're drafting someone at 24, I want consistency there. I want to know what to expect. And if I'm drafting Ketel Marte, I'm probably going to expect a 275 with a 25 and 80. And anything above that's a gravy train. But I'm getting that in the 4th or 5th round, not at 24.
I think the biggest question with Ketel Marte is he actually going to stay healthy? Because in 2024, 136 games, that's almost a month of production that's gone. So it's been pretty consistent throughout his career that he's going to miss time, which there's a lot of players that we could say that about. But when you're paying this type of premium for this guy, what did you say? 36 overall?
24.
24. Wow. So paying for a guy that early in the draft at the end of the second round, there are so many other safe bets around him that I would probably pass over Ketel Marte also. And just to kind of reiterate, everyone that we're talking about on this list, they do bring a certain value to the table that if you wait long enough, we're not telling you to avoid these guys the whole draft. If Ketel Marte drops to the 4th round, you bet I'm picking him up. Same thing with all the other guys that we've talked about and we will talk about. But just at this draft cost, I definitely agree with you on that one. I think that the injury concerns are just a little bit too much for me to put that gamble on.
And it's tough because there's not and you look at a guy like Ketel Marte and I'm like, all right, well, even at 24, who would I rather have? There's no one else I'd really rather have. I just think it's just so early to draft a second baseman and B, Ketel Marte. So, looking at other guys that we would potentially consider at second base, Jose Altuve with what sounds like outfield eligibility at 44.
Yeah, I saw a video of Jose Altuve taking fly balls in left field. I think it was yesterday or the day before. It's weird, man. It's weird seeing a dude that's 5'5" running around in left field.
Probably looks like an ant running up an anthill.
Yeah, basically. So I'm looking at ADP right now. Ketel Marte is going right before Ronald Acuna Jr. Now, who would you rather have? Would you rather? Okay, so Ronald Acuna Jr. is probably going to miss the first month of the season, right? I'm okay with that. Ketel Marte, when is he going to miss his month of the season? Because it's pretty much been consistent, except for 2023, that he misses at least a month of the season. So Ronald Acuna Jr. versus Ketel Marte, there is so much more upside with Acuna. I love Ketel Marte. I think he's worth it if he can stay healthy at number 24. But Ronald Acuna Jr. going to miss only the first month of the season, and if I can have him for the last, basically the rest of the season, I'm all over that. I think 25 is still a little too early though.
You're not guaranteed to get 2023 Ronnie, so it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a great. I love that comparison. Just back to back. I mean, if you hold a gun to me, I'm going to tell you Ronald Acuna, but realistically, I have to think about it more than I should.
I want to say Ronald, but they're definitely both liabilities.
I drafted Ronnie last year, number 1 overall, so I have that taste in my mouth of what happens when Ronnie's not fun.
All right, Ernie says, Vince, you still have the Guardians winning the AL Central. I don't know. Let's wait for Vince to see what he says. And I honestly, I love the Royals, man. I think that the Royals are going to take it up a notch this season. I love what they did last year, and I think that that now that they know what they can do, that they're gonna kind of like push through for the whole season rather than trying to make like a late push later on. Like, you can't waste the prime of like Bobby Witt Jr. and Cole Reagans. Like, now is the time to like really go for it, in my opinion. At least for the Central.
Bobby's not even in his prime yet, brother. Oh my God!
Imagine when he does.
Some good Bobby.
27 years old is always the age that I say, like, man strength is when you really get like into that like zone, and your muscles are finally like at their full potential. This guy has huge potential, man. 40 home runs, 80 stolen bases. I could definitely see that from Bobby Witt Jr. Let's say like 3 years from now, 2 or 3 years from now.
I mean, he's a stud now. He's gonna win an MVP or 3. So
yeah, and like, just to put that in context, like if someone told me that they were taking Bobby Witt Jr. number 1 overall, I'm okay with that. I could see the argument for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sure. And let's see. Second baseman that I'm avoiding usually goes at the last pick of the 5th round, and my pick is Marcus Semien. So Marcus Semien has been good at 2 things in his career: plate discipline and durability. And this dude doesn't really strike out much, which makes his draft stock in points leagues a little bit higher. But in categories, his claim to fame is simply just staying on the field. So since 2016, Marcus Semien has played at least 159 games per season, not counting the shortened 2020 season. And since 2019, Semien has scored at least 100-plus runs in each season. But he doesn't hit the ball very hard. His expected batting average has always been very mid. Barrel percentage has always been below MLB average. Stolen bases have declined. Rangers lineup really isn't anything special other than Corey Seager, who has health issues of his own. But without a good supporting cast around Semien, his value doesn't really appeal to me too much. He's still a solid bet to score 100 runs because he is their leadoff hitter, but Father Time always wins eventually, and after 12 MLB seasons, Semien has shown a lot of signs of decline. And at his age, I think it's only a matter of time before Simeon becomes close to being completely irrelevant. He's going at pick 60, but if you wait 3 to 4 rounds later, you can draft someone with a lot more upside. Jordan Westberg, Matt McClain. I think I've always been the low guy on Simeon, but yeah, I'd much rather wait a little bit and go for those 2 guys that have higher upside.
Easy on the completely irrelevant thing. Easy. This is a guy that finished 3rd overall in 2023 in the MVP awards, by the way. Easy.
Okay. One of the things that Simeon is just so good about is just playing 161 games, 162 games, 159 games. He's always on the field, but there's going to be a time when he's not, and he's getting older. He's going to have days off, and I think it's going to come sooner rather than later. And the Rangers already won the World Series, and I really don't think that they have what it takes to get to the World Series again in 2025 or beyond, unless they make some like big moves. But I think they had their heyday.
We might actually have to hop on Power Hour here and argue with the boys, because I'm actually pretty high on the Rangers this year.
Really? I don't know. Even though the Astros are not what they were 5 years ago, I still think I got the Astros being the number 1 in the AL West this season.
Rangers division to lose.
All right, man. That was second base. Let's go ahead and move on to third base. Who's the third baseman you're avoiding this year?
Tell me the baseman that you like first, and then I'll tell you it's going to parlay into the one that I want to avoid, because we are on completely opposite spectrums on this guy.
The third baseman that I like is Austin Riley. I think Austin Riley's upside is huge for the draft position that he's going at.
Fair. Well, I was kind of waiting for you to bring up Mr. Royce Lewis, who is my third baseman to avoid. You love Royce Lewis.
I do love Royce Lewis.
Royce Lewis, in fantasy baseball and in life, the best ability is availability. Royce Lewis has been in the MLB for parts of 3 seasons, and he's played in 58 games. 58 games, 8 games, and 82 games in 3 seasons. He doesn't play. He does not play. He's been in the Twins organization since 2017. He's played in more than 100 games in just 2 of those seasons. He's never healthy. He's never going to be healthy. We saw him in 2023 in 58 games, and that's when he hit 309. That's when Will fell in love with him, because he had 15 cute little home runs in 58 games, which was a fluke. And
think so? I don't know.
100%. 100%. And Royce Lewis is just never healthy. So the actual ceiling on Royce Lewis, when Royce Lewis is healthy, is like a 275 with 25 and 85 RBI.
Oh, I definitely disagree with that, man. I think it's more like 35 home runs from Royce Lewis. If he can stay healthy, 35 home runs is definitely in the realm of possibilities for Royce Lewis. But that is the biggest problem, is when is he healthy? Just like you mentioned,
My dude can't even stay healthy in MLB The Show.
Yeah. All right, man. I agree with you that I am definitely avoiding Royce Lewis in drafts, because his draft position, I think it's 119. Is that what I saw?
It's 119, and it kind of leads me to even going back to the Rangers. I think one of the big key components here for the Rangers is going to be Jake Berger's big fat ass. And even Jake Berger at 128, I like his potential better than Royce Lewis's. I think Jake Berger is going to stay on the field and give me some pop. Actually, I don't think that. I know that, versus hoping that Royce Lewis does that. So I would rather have Jake Berger at 128 in that Rangers lineup. I would definitely rather have my ex-best friend Alec Bohm at 143. And definitely also rather have Josh Jung even at 222 over Royce Lewis, to be completely honest with you. So I'm not sniffing Royce Lewis.
First of all,
unless he's a free agent.
Right. It's Josh Jung.
Whatever.
All right. But second of all, I love Josh Jung. I think that the potential for Josh Young is similar to Royce Lewis if Royce Lewis was healthy. But I'm not willing to pay that premium on Royce Lewis either. Now, in a perfect world, what I would like to do is let someone else draft him, and then I could trade some garbage for Royce Lewis later on when he does get hurt. So that way I hold him on my IL until he's healthy, slot him in my lineup when he is healthy, and then just put him back on the IL when he goes back on the IL again. That way I don't have to pay his draft stock. I can just, draft. I can pick up some random pitcher that has 3 good starts in a row and, sell him off to whoever has Royce Lewis.
Or you can just not draft Royce Lewis, and then you can pick him up April 17th when he gets his mild calf strain.
Yeah, then we'll just wait for him to get dropped, right? Because someone's going to add him and probably end up dropping him. The way that IL stints are now, even in our league that has 3 IL spots, it's like that really doesn't seem to be enough. And it used to be 2, but during COVID, I added an extra one because some of these guys were going on the COVID IL and you needed that extra roster spot. So I added the 1, but now it seems like, should I really add a 4th? I don't know. I know there's no limit on Major League Baseball having IL spots, so maybe we should just increase ours also.
I mean, I think on a quick tangent on that is as baseball contracts go up, they want to protect these guys more to keep them healthier for longer. So they're going to, rather than play through any kind of mild injury, you're just hitting the shelf. So yeah, I would add that extra spot if I were you. Selfishly.
All right. So moving on to my third baseman that I'm avoiding. And I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with this because there's so much hype. He was on the cover of MLB The Show in 2023, and that's Jazz Chisholm. Now, Jazz Chisholm is currently going 36 overall, so right at the end of the 3rd round. I think the upside for Jazz is 260, 270 batting average, 30-plus home runs, 40 stolen bases with decent plate discipline. And those numbers are excellent at pick 36, but I don't think he can stay healthy enough. Kind of like what you were saying about Royce Lewis, or what we were saying about Royce Lewis. I think Jazz has similar concerns, not to that level, because like you said, Royce Lewis played 58 games in the last 3 seasons. But Jazz Chisholm has his injury concerns, of his own. You're paying for upside in the 3rd round, and if he doesn't live up to the hype, you're passing on guys like Austin Riley, Dylan Cease, Cole Reagan, who I know you're low on. Jose Altuve, Ozzy Albies. Honestly, I'd rather have any of these guys that I just mentioned more than I'd rather have Jazz Chisholm. If I can get Jazz Chisholm in like maybe the 5th round, beginning of the 5th round, I'd probably go for that, especially because he has second base, third base, and outfield eligibility. I think he still has second base. I'm not sure. Definitely third and outfield still. But I'd rather have Jose Altuve 8 picks later or Ozzy Albies 12 picks later. Much more consistent than we've seen from Jazz Chisholm. So last year, Jazz played 147 games, but in 2023, he played 97 games. In 2022, he played 60 games. 2021, he played 124 games. So to live up to this hype that, this Jazz hype, he's got to stay healthy, and last season he was healthy for the majority of it, but I feel like I need to see more consistency than just 1 season from Jazz.
Yeah, and I'll advise don't fall for the Yankees hype. First full season in pinstripes, kind of, ooh, look at this shiny toy playing in the Bronx with, Cody Bellinger and Judge and all, and nah, don't buy it. Look at Gleyber Torres, I think, as the comp. That's kind of what I see Jazz Chisholm doing as well. So, I don't know.
Yep.
I'm not drafting that 36 overall or that early. Absolutely not.
Yeah, that early. I'm trying to go for more safer options. I'm willing to take a gamble maybe like 2 rounds later, but not that early. All right, man. Moving on to shortstop. Who is the shortstop that you are actively avoiding?
I'm going to actively avoid the poor man's Elly De La Cruz. So that's going to be Mr. O'Neal Cruz. He should be so much better, man. He should be so good. O'Neal Cruz, what's he, like 6'7", throws like 120 miles an hour from shortstop to first. awesome bat, just runs like a gazelle, but he didn't have a bad year last year. He had 259, 21 homers, 76 RBI, and 22 stolen bases. There's just nothing that's really popping off the chart flashy for me. It's good. It's not great. And O'Neal Cruz at 65. There's just so many good shortstops that I'd rather have an elite shortstop or get someone. There's just so many of them that you can get a worse shortstop 200 picks later. That's not that different in value, in my opinion. So guys that are going around that same 65 to 70 range, CJ Abrams, I like better at 66. Willie Adames at 70. Bo Bichette, even 134 versus O'Neal Cruz at 65 all day. And even guys I'd wait on, a couple extra bonus picks. I'd sit for a guy like Volpe, Xander Bogaerts, Ezekiel Tovar, Bryson Stott, even Zach Neto. These are guys that I think have higher potential than O'Neal Cruz. They're getting drafted much later. And I don't trust O'Neal Cruz because last year was the best season by far he's really put together, and it was not even that great.
All right. My turn. I love O'Neal Cruz. I have O'Neal Cruz as my top shortstop sleeper this season. Okay, I don't know if you probably saw this because you're on Baseball Savant just as often as I am. The dude hit the ball 95.5 miles per hour on average. There's only two guys that hit the ball harder than that on average. Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. And both of those guys are the premier power hitters in the game today. It's only a matter of time before O'Neal Cruz raises the launch angle and hits 40 bombs of his own. Last season, what'd you say? 21 home runs and 22 stolen bases. And 22 stolen bases is great. It looks like the leg injury is healed enough where he can get, 20 plus stolen bases. I think that could actually increase a lot, especially because he's only 26 years old. That's another thing too. He's going into his age 27 season. And I've already mentioned it a couple times on this podcast, man strength years. He's going into his man strength years. He's hitting the ball 95 miles an hour on average at 26 years old. Dude, I'm so hype about this guy. I traded him I traded for him in my dynasty league. I don't even remember what I gave up for him. I don't even remember. But dude, O'Neal Cruz, I'm into the hype on O'Neal Cruz. And I think, what did we say his ADP was? 65 overall. I think that's actually a steal. I would pick him up maybe a half round or even a full round earlier than that. I'm definitely the high guy on O'Neal Cruz, especially now that he has outfield eligibility because he's going to be the center fielder for the Pirates going forward. So shortstop and outfield eligibility, sign me up, man.
So here's what scares me. When's the last time the Pirates have really developed a prospect? I'll give you Brian Reynolds, but even so, he hasn't really. He's been good.
But Andrew McCutchen signed a 1-year deal. So that's good veteran guidance that could definitely help O'Neal Cruz bring out some potential.
He was there last year. He's been there.
He was, but also O'Neal Cruz, he wasn't there for the full season. How many games did he play last year? Let me see. 146 games. So he was basically there for the whole season. But I still think that
65 overall, Will.
Yeah, I'm the upside is Ellie De La Cruz level, man. It's like, okay, we're talking about this Ellie De La Cruz like going number 4, number 5 overall, and he only hit, I think he hit about the same, like 21 home runs last year. He did have like a bunch more stolen bases, 3 times as many stolen bases, but he strikes out just the same. I feel like this is a poor man's Ellie De La Cruz, and you're getting him, 4 rounds later.
Yeah, man. That's what I just said.
Yeah, but you're getting him 4 rounds later, and he has the same potential as Ellie De La Cruz. Hits the ball harder than Ellie De La Cruz. The only thing Ellie De La Cruz does better than O'Neal Cruz is he runs faster.
No, that's not the only thing. He does everything better than him. That's why he's drafted 4th overall, and that's why your boy is drafted 65. He's a poor man's Ellie De La Cruz. He doesn't have the same potential. He has he has the same power potential, but he's not Ellie De La Cruz. You know that in your heart of hearts.
Well,
you know it.
The value that you get at number 65 versus the value that you get at number 4, I don't think that there's a big enough difference in between them to, at least in 2025, to really like make that big of a difference in ADP.
That I will give you, for sure.
All right, man. Let's move on to outfield. Who is your outfielder that you are actively avoiding? Oh, you know what? I didn't do my shortstop. I'm dumb. Let's go back to shortstop real quick. All right. So my shortstop is a guy that you actually just mentioned that's going right after O'Neal Cruz, and that's CJ Abrams, going number 66 overall. It's middle of the 6th round, and that's a premium that I'm not willing to pay for, in my opinion, mid talent in a weak lineup. In 2024, he hit a career high 20 home runs, 31 stolen bases. He has potential to get 50 if he gets on base enough, but he does have to get on base enough. And I don't really see that happening for CJ Abrams. He like I mentioned, he's on a weak lineup. He's on a weak team. They don't really develop their players too well either. You know, I mean, we do have a couple stars that came out of Washington. You have Bryce Harper, you have Juan Soto, Trey Turner, but I feel like those guys had so much hype even before they got drafted that they didn't really need to develop. I don't really trust Washington to do what they should be doing with CJ Abrams. He doesn't strike out a lot, but he also doesn't walk a lot. He really isn't a standout in anything except for stolen bases. And now that the bases are bigger and pitches are limited to pickoff attempts on stolen bases, I feel like stolen bases have just been easier to come by from your, like, you know, average Joe Schmo player. So they're not as valuable, you know, as they used to be. He's the 9th shortstop off the board, but I feel like you can get Matt McClain or the guy that you said earlier, Bo Bichette, 50 picks later. I'd rather have Bo Bichette than CJ Abrams. I feel like he has much higher upside than Abrams does. Even Bryson Stott, that's going 100 picks later, has similar value to Abrams, and Stott is in a much better lineup.
Yeah, I think CJ Abrams has such high upside, and he's 23 years old, and that's what you haven't hit on. We're not even sniffing dad strength yet. So we're talking about an age 24 season. This guy's fast. He's got power, and his average has continued to improve. So I see CJ Abrams this year as a guy who could hit 280. I'm not saying he should, but he could hit 280. He could hit 30 home runs, and he could hit for like 90 RBI. And that's a pretty awesome season. He hit 20 last year.
All right. Average exit velocity, 88 miles per hour. He's not hitting the ball very hard. There's no way he's going to hit 30 home runs with a very mid exit velocity. Let's see what his max was. Max exit velocity 110. That's pretty good. You know,
he only played 138 games last year. You can absolutely hit 30.
I don't know. I think he needs to get in the weight room a little bit, you know, before he turns 27 years old in the next, you know, 4 years or whatever it is. He's 24 now. So let's say the next 2 years, dude needs to get in the weight room, do some squats, you know, build up that strength. I could see him potentially getting up to 90 mile an hour exit velocity, but I think it's going to be a lot more hard work. And I don't really know his work ethic. I don't know him like that.
Speaking of weight room, we are officially going to put a bet of $10.99, which is one membership month at Planet Fitness, that our boy CJ Abrams is going to hit over 30 home runs this year, 30 or more. So $10. So you're
going to pay my gym membership for the month?
You'll be paying mine.
All right, deal.
Come on, CJ.
All right, man.
Let's go, baby. Bulk up.
Moving on to outfield.
Protein
Let's
shakes.
hear your outfielder that you are avoiding this year.
Brenton Doyle. When I saw his name even on the list, I was like, Brenton Doyle? He just came up and had a cup of coffee in the majors, and we're taking him top 100 already? Dude, what? It's his third season, entering his third season in baseball. He's a nice player playing out in Colorado, but he would be the worst player on the Los Angeles Dodgers. I don't know what this guy is yet. His 2023 was pretty rough, where he hit 203, 10 home runs, 48 RBI in 126 games. He's a little bit balanced. He gave us 22 steals last year in 2023, 2 years ago, and came back stronger with 30 steals last year. So he's improving, but it's 2 years in the MLB. I can't rely on this guy yet. He had 260, 23 homers, 72 RBI last year. The Rockies have one of the worst lineups in baseball, so he's not going to get a ton of RBI opportunities. Charlie Blackmon just retired, and Chris Bryant's your veteran leader in there, so he's not going to develop. Nope, no Brenton Doyle for me.
I agree with you inside the top 100. I'm not really willing to make that gamble. Now, if he was going right outside the top 100, a few picks later, I think I might take the chance on him. But
Sure.
there are some other guys that are going right after him. So let's see. Brenton Doyle we have at number 96, but that means you're passing on
Mike
Junior
Trout.
Caminero. Not just outfielders like Mike Trout, yes, for sure. I'd rather have Mike Trout than Brenton Doyle, especially because they're moving him out of center field, hoping to keep him healthy. And now that Shohei Ohtani's gone, he's probably going to be playing DH a lot more often to try to, keep his health intact. But if you draft Brenton Doyle, that means that you're probably passing on Jordan Westburg, Junior Caminero, Wilson Contreras, who I'm pretty high on also because he will have first base eligibility. He is going to be the starting first baseman for the Cardinals this season. Riley Green, who has potential. Christian Yelich, a former MVP. All he needs to do is just stay healthy, and he could bring second round value. The big question is the health, as we mentioned with a lot of players out there. But yeah, I completely agree with you. And the outfielder that I am avoiding in drafts is your boy, Luis Robert Jr. Current ADP is 110. It's beginning of the 9th round. And the same concerns that I have for Jazz Chisholm, I have for Luis Robert. He has the upside of 40 home runs, 25 plus stolen bases with a 280 batting average. But if he can even get close to those numbers, he needs to stay healthy. Drafting him in the 9th round would be an absolute steal if he could play 140 games and you were promised 140 games. But this dude gets hurt so often. In the past 4 seasons, Luis Robert. I need to say his name the right way. As Luis Robert. Is he French? I don't know where he's from, but they call him Luis Robert on the TV. So I'm going to call him Luis Robert. I like how that sounds. All right, so Robert has only played more than 100 games once in his career. He was in a lot of trade rumors last season, but honestly, who wants to trade top prospects for a guy that just can't stay healthy? I wouldn't want to see that. So in May 2021, he had a hip thing. April 2021, he had a groin thing. Oh, no, April 2022, he had a groin thing. August 2022, a wrist. September 2022, wrist. September again 2022, wrist. April 2023, hamstring. May 2023, hip. July 2023, calf. September, quad. September, knee. Too many injuries that are not only going to limit his playing time, but it's also going to decrease the quality of contact as well. You can't swing the bat too hard if your hip, your quad, your knee, your wrist are constantly getting injured. Now, hopefully by pick 110, you'll have at least 2 outfielders because after Luis Robert, it's slim pickings out there. Not really a lot of good outfielders going on after that. Maybe some guys with some upside, but not really a lot of safer options. So, but that is when you go after guys with upside, like your boy, Jason Dominguez, Colton Cowser, Kerry Carpenter. Not a lot of safe options, like I mentioned, but there's a lot of potential in the later rounds. And yeah, I'd much rather go for upside rather than drafting Luis Robert and worrying about stashing him in my IL for more than half the season.
And I think part of that upside could be him on a different team and he's going to play somewhere else. He's not going to spend his entire year in Chicago. There's just no way.
He needs to be a DH. If he can be promised to be a DH somewhere, because he's not even that good of a fielder anyway. You know, he has solid defense, but it's not like he's like Gold Glove type. You know,
he's too young and too fast.
Yeah, I guess you don't want to waste what he could be. All right, man. Moving on to relief pitchers. Now, for relief pitchers, personally, I usually just punt on relievers. You know, in a categories league, they might help your ratios a little bit, but for the most part, you're paying for, you know, one pitching category in just saves or holds versus starting pitchers that offer much more than that. Emmanuel Clase will probably lead the league in saves again, but his 3 innings per week, it's just not enough value for me. You know, passing up on starting pitchers that are going after him, like Blake Snell, George Kirby, Yamamoto, Framber Valdez. I would much rather have any of those starting pitchers before I draft a closer, no matter how good he is. John, before you give us your reliever pick, go ahead and you know, give me your thoughts on what I just said.
So I'm in your league, and you do devalue the relief pitcher more than anyone I've ever met. So I'm gonna publicly out you for that. Relief pitchers can really make or break your week. So they are important, at least in every league I've played in, where you have a relief pitcher that blows a save and gives up 5 runs and gets you a loss. Your week is wrecked. So you got to be careful with that, and it really depends on how your league is scored. So the league that we were in together last year, Will, that we're in again, but I know we're changing kind of the point system a little bit on that to value relief pitchers a bit more, but I get what you're saying and not valuing them I don't value them nearly as much as you should starting pitchers either. Looking at this though, I went for the least, I was thinking of the worst closer in baseball or the best 8th inning guy. So that's where I went with Kirby Yates. So I'm avoiding Kirby Yates only because he is the best setup man, not a closer. So he's not going to get the save. He'll get a couple save opportunities here and there, probably out in LA, but he's probably not going to be the guy, despite his 1.17 ERA last year, which is just disgusting. But just keep in mind, in 2020, Kirby Yates had a 12.46 ERA. He did not pitch in 2021 due to injury. This guy is going to be 38 years old, and he's not going to get save chances, or at least not consistently. So I'm avoiding Kirby Yates.
Yeah. In a league where it's just saves, I completely agree. The dynamic definitely changes if it's in a saves and holds league. You know, if saves and holds are equal in value. But, you know, just talking about saves, I actually had Kirby Yates as my reliever pick as well. But just to be different, I'm actually going to say his teammate, Tanner Scott. And both are on the same team. They're both on the Dodgers. They're both going to get save opportunities. But the Dodgers, like most organizations in 2025, don't have a traditional closer. You know, they have they put the best arms in the highest leverage situations. I believe they call it the fireman now rather than like a traditional closer. They did it with, you know, Blake Trinan last year. They did it with who's the guy with the beard that came over from the White Sox? I forget his name. I don't know. The long beard. Messed up in the World Series.
I know what you're talking about.
We'll figure it out later.
Throws 101 miles per hour. Oh my god.
Yeah, that guy with the long stringy beard. I don't know. If there's anyone in the comments that wants to, you know, shed a light on who this RP is that we're talking about, you know, go ahead and put it in there. Kopech? Was it Kopech?
Michael Kopech, yep.
Michael Kopech. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, I mean, he's good. You know, he's a really good reliever, but he didn't really get a lot of save opportunities. Same thing with Blake Trinan, not as many as they should have, because, you know, if you're facing the Phillies, you know, and you have let's say like Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, and Bryce Harper coming up, you're not going to put in your setup guy. You're going to put in the guy that has the best chances of getting those 3 outs that you need, and that takes away kind of like that closer potential, which I feel like it's very smart, but it's like who cares if the closer is going to face 7, 8, and 9 in the 9th inning? Don't have him face 7, 8, and 9. Get him in there in the 8th to take care of the 4, 5, and 6. That it's smart. And actually, one thing I wanted to bring up to you, if we have a little bit of time later after starting pitcher, let's go ahead and move on to starting pitcher for now. So go ahead and let us know your starting pitcher that you are actively avoiding.
Well, you alluded to it earlier. I don't hate Cole Reagans. I just think Cole Reagans at 39 is still a little aggressive. He came onto it last year. He showed that he belongs in the conversation. But Cole Reagans is a very nice pitcher. He reminds me of Cole Hamels. His Ks per 9 are a little bit higher. His Ks per 9 at 10.1 per 9 is really nice. But there's really nothing that really insanely pops off the chart for Cole Reagans. I don't know. I guess if I'm taking a guy and he's going to be my best pitcher, I don't see Cole Reagans as my true best pitcher on my fantasy team, unless I got 3 bats and now Cole Reagans is the only guy, or 4 bats, and I have to take him. But I'd prefer guys like Garrett Cole at 43, Blake Snell at 45, George Kirby at 47, even Framber Valdez at 58, and Michael King at 59. And shit, I'd even take Jake DeGrom at 63 over Cole Reagans.
Ooh, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, buddy.
I was with you all the way up until Jacob DeGrom, because
I knew you would be.
He's going to make 4 starts, and then
in April or
in total. No, probably not. I'd say he'll make 10 starts. That's my guess.
On. Chill.
Oh man, dude, Jacob DeGrom cannot stay healthy.
Bruce Bochy said he's feeling good. What more do you need?
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna trust Bruce Bochy.
He's feeling good.
I definitely agree with you. I think Cole Reagans' price is a little too high for a guy that I see as a number 2 starter, not as an ace. Blake Snell, definitely rather have him. Garrett Cole, definitely rather have him. Framber Valdez. But yeah, that's way too early for me. And for my starting pitcher, I'm gonna pick another one of your boys. You got a lot of boys on my list. Aaron Nola. So I've always been the low guy on Aaron Nola, and he's always been a pretty consistent innings eater, high strikeouts. But after seeing his 2024 results, he still eats innings, but strikeouts have steadily been on a decline since he peaked at 33.2% in 2020. But since then, the K percentage has dropped to 29.8 in 2021, 29.1 in 2022, 25.5 in 2023, and 24% in 2024. That have a 24% strikeout rate. Generally not considered like aces of the staff, and Nola was the ace of the staff before Zach Wheeler got there, and this was supposed to be, they gave him an extension for a reason. They thought that he was going to be the guy that had, close to a 30% strikeout rate, but I don't really see him as that guy anymore. Plus, because of his rising fly ball rate, Nola is susceptible to the home run ball, which is why he'll have these blow up starts, giving up 7 runs in 5 innings. And then the following week, he'll get close to a hitter. He's too inconsistent for me, especially at his price of 70 overall. There's some of the pitchers that are going after Aaron Nola and ADP that I would much prefer. Max Fried, Luis Castillo, Bailey Ober. I know Max Fried has injury concerns of his own, but he's on a really good team. Hitter-friendly ballpark, so that's a little scary. But Luis Castillo, I feel like he's probably going to get traded this season because, Seattle's not really going to do anything. They're not going to the playoffs, so might as well get some pieces for the future. And Bailey Ober, I think Bailey Ober has so much upside that I really like Bailey Ober. I think that he could be a potential sleeper as well. I think that he has the potential of being an ace on a staff. He just needs to put it all together.
I think Bailey Ober's ceiling is Cole Reagan's now.
Think so? I think he's a little better than that.
Yeah.
Maybe Bailey Ober's ceiling is what Cole Reagan's was last season.
Sure. You're also too low on Nola. I mean, you're acting like this guy's an absolute scrum. He did give you a 3.57 last year, which isn't bad. 14 wins. So like,
but when
you
look at like when you look at the season numbers, like that's fine. You know, even with the strikeouts that are low, that's fine. But the guy has just burned me in the past before. You know, he left a bad taste in my mouth after I had him a couple seasons in fantasy where, you know, he'll ruin my week, you know, and then I'll get pissed off. And then next week he faces like a really good team. So I end up benching him because I don't want negative points again. And then he'll go out and throw 8 solid innings with 13 Ks, you know.
You got beef with Aaron Nola, dog.
Yeah. I'm still passing on him. I'd much rather have those other guys that I talked about other than Aaron Nola. Now, if he can get back to like the close to 30% strikeout rate, then, you know, things get different, because even if he's giving up those earned runs, if he gives up 7 runs, but he has 11 strikeouts, you know, they counteract each other. So, you know, I really wouldn't mind that so much, except for in a categories league. I'm definitely staying away from Aaron Nola in a categories league. WHIP is too high. ERA is too high. And he doesn't have the strikeouts to really help me in that area either. You know, maybe quality starts, probably wins. He's going to finish with like 12, 15. 13 wins, maybe 15, if he can be more consistent. But yeah. All right. So that was my starting pitcher. So now I wanted to ask you, I did hear from, it was a interview with Rob Thompson, that they are flirting with the idea of taking Kyle Schwarber out of the leadoff spot, which is what I've been saying for the past 3 seasons. Why are you having a career 230 batting average guy in the leadoff spot? Oh, he walks a lot. He gets on base a lot. Yeah, I mean, that's true, but his on base percentage is still only about 330. You know, I want a guy that has like a 380 on base percentage, not 330 batting in the leadoff spot. So, all right, tell me your thoughts as a Phillies fan.
It is fun to start a game 1-0. That's my main thought. Especially in the bottom of the first. So that's my main thought, I guess. On my follow-up thought on that, unless you have somebody else that you were going to slot in there, like a Trey Turner or Bryson Stott, neither has shown they can do it. They've tried it. It hasn't worked. Kyle Schwarber has. So they keep trying to move him out. It hasn't worked. They'll keep trying. If they win a World Series with him not as the leadoff, then they'll say, okay, but until he is not the guy, he is. And they really don't have a leadoff hitter now. I think they do in the future, but right now they don't have that guy. I'd rather Trey Turner hit second than leadoff. I think in the future, Justin Crawford or like a Aiden Miller could be that guy, but we're not there yet. They just don't have a true leadoff hitter. They have a bunch of 3, 4, 5, 6 hitters. 5, 6 hitters.
I should have looked this up, but I'm wondering what Trey Turner's on base percentage is versus Kyle Schwarber. Because if you have Trey Turner batting leadoff, and even if you put Kyle Schwarber second, that home run turns into 2 runs instead of just 1.
We haven't seen nearly the best of Trey Turner yet.
I want to say Trey Turner's on base percentage is probably at least 20 points higher than Kyle Schwarber. And with the speed, dude, he could steal second, and then Kyle Schwarber hits, you know, a fly ball to right field, and then you have a guy on third base with Bryce Harper coming up with only 1 out. You know, but Rob Thompson, he's been the Phillies manager for what, 3 seasons now?
Trey Turner had a 338 OBP compared to Kyle Schwarber's 366.
Ooh, 366. Now, was that last season when Kyle Schwarber's batting average was actually 350 or 250? What was it before in 2023? Because his on base percentage, I mean, his batting average in 2023 was like near the Mendoza line. So his on base percentage must have been like super low that year. I feel like he sacrificed a little bit of power last season to help with batting average a little bit.
He did. His swing kind of leveled out a little bit more. He was just kind of lining it instead of mashing it. I like Kyle Schwarber. I think they're going to re-sign him. It wouldn't be the most exciting.
He did say he wants an extension.
Yeah, I wouldn't be, running down Broad Street or anything over that. Truthfully, I'm not kidding when I say Kyle Tucker is on the Phillies' radar. 100%. 100%. They're going to get Kyle. They're going to get Kyle Tucker. Promise.
All right, guys.
Said it with Bryce Harper.
Yeah, you did. That is the end of our show. We appreciate everyone for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and check out some of our other videos that I will put under John and my face right here once the video is over. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Thanks for all the comments. Good chatting with you. See you.